Hi, and welcome to CMO Journeys, where we sit down with the marketing leaders that are shaping some of today's most innovative brands. I'm Christian Banach, and I explore the stories behind CMOs, how they lead, how they grow, and how they think about partnering with agencies. Grindr is the world's largest LGBTQ+ social app, serving millions of people globally and increasingly positioning itself as more than just a dating platform, a true global gayborhood in your pocket. Tristan Pineiro is Grindr's Chief Marketing Officer, leading brand, content, communications, and partnerships during a major cultural and business transformation for the company, a journey that recently earned him recognition as one of Campaign's top 50 CMOs. Tristan, welcome to CMO Journeys.
Thank you very much for having me. Great to meet you.
Likewise. So you have had a career that spans agencies, entertainment, gaming, dating, and now one of the most culturally significant platforms in the LGBTQ plus world. When you look back, how do you think about your career in chapters rather than in titles?
How do I think about it? I think at the heart of it, I've always been a storyteller, and I've always really been thinking, the first thing that I've always been thinking is this interesting? Is this entertaining? Are people going to remember this? So that's been at the heart of everything that I've done. You know, in my career, I came to marketing via comms, and it's quite rare for comms people to make it to CMO. However, I think the fact that I have, and the fact that the story, the engagement, the entertainment needs to be a lot more at the heart of any marketing campaign these days, is something that I've been thinking about for a very long time, and I'm glad we're finally here. You know, more of us are making it to leadership positions.
Yeah, that's great. Well, congratulations again. So before any of these big global brands, though, you were promoting underground queer clubs in Manchester in the early 90s.
I was.
What did that era teach you about culture, community, and how people actually come together?
Everything. You know, it was such an exciting time in the early 90s in Manchester in the north of England. There really was a queer revolution up there. The whole Queer Up North movement was born out of Manchester. And there was a lot more exciting, boundary pushing, experimental nights, clubs, fashion up there than even in London at the time, to be honest. And I was up there whilst I was at university, and I stayed on a little bit longer later. My route to university was not necessarily a traditional one. I grew up in Menorca, which is a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean, Spanish island. And I lived there until I was 14 with my family. My father was a self-made man, and he had a restaurant. He was a chef. He had a restaurant in Menorca. And the plan for me was very much to stay there, take on the family business. That wasn't something that I wanted to do. I rebelled against that. I was lucky in that my mum's English, so I was able to go and live with family in the UK. However, the plan was never for me to go to university. It was always for me to go back to the family business. So I was having to work through university to be able to afford to be there. And I was so lucky that I went to Manchester when all of this was happening. And it really just, in a very roundabout way, made me understand culture, underground movements, what's interesting, where fashions and trends and ways of thinking come from. And it's something that I've kept to this day.
Yeah, that's great. Such a great story, and how you went from Menorca, island in the middle of the Mediterranean, to England, and then now have landed in West Hollywood. Is that right?
That's right. I'm in West Hollywood from Menorca. You know, Menorca's absolutely stunning. I go back there now and I can tell that it's idyllic. It's a national park. It's so green and such blue sea. Of course, as a 14-year-old, I thought it was the most boring place in the world. I couldn't wait to get out. The whole place is 43 kilometers from one end to the other. So yes, I definitely from a young age knew that I wanted to get out. But now
Sure. And what were you studying in university?
I studied linguistics with languages, with Romance linguistics, so all of the Latin languages. And as part of that, I did French drama as well. So it was a very kind of like artsy degree. It meant that I spent the third year in Paris studying and teaching English as well, which was incredible because that was the late 90s. And I had such a great time there and got very involved with the club scene there as well. And I think, you know, as a communicator, understanding language and the science of language through linguistics is invaluable because it understands it teaches you everything about persuasion and context and positioning, which are invaluable tools as a communicator and as a marketer.
Yeah, absolutely. So you didn't go to school for marketing, but I know early in your career, and you've really kind of bounced back and forth from agencies and also in-house, leadership several times. What have you taken away from that experience at these various agencies that shape how you're leading your teams today?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have seen both sides of the coin. And you know, when I'm recruiting people, having an agency background is something that is a real bonus for me. I think having worked in agency makes you a much better client because you know very often what happens with agency and client relationships when they haven't seen the other side of it is that there's this conflict where there's this kind of assumption that the agency is out to get your money for the least possible amount of work. What I understand, having been in several agencies working on global clients, is that in the agency side, you really do want to do the best possible work for your client. You want to deliver, you want work that you're proud of, you want work that your team is happy to work on. So, the understanding that it is a partnership, that you have shared goals, and that constant relationship building between the two. So it is as seamless a team as possible so that you are inviting your agency into your brand, your business, so that they can see behind the curtain, they can understand who's who, they can understand the goals, they can understand the mechanics of it all. So the agency can really understand that by the time a brief has come to an agency, there is so much work to get there. As kind of 90% of the work has been done. And the agency part very often is the final delivery piece. However, the final delivery piece isn't going to work well unless they are in some way involved, aware of, you know, the sausage factory to get us to that brief stage. So like everything in this industry, it's all about relationships and communication and staying close to those people and understanding that you do all want the same thing, that you are all working to a shared goal. Um, and the relationship piece is the bit that I think is the most important.
Yeah, yeah, that I'm sure gives you an interesting perspective. I've not worked on the client side, but have definitely been on the agency side and been on the receiving end of briefs that unfortunately sometimes don't make any sense, and you kind of pull your hair out like, where is this coming from? So I
Yeah,
see that perspective, but I don't know all the work that went into it on the other end, so I can appreciate that. Yeah,
I've been that person as well. You know, I've sat there in agency thinking, what do these in-house people actually do? They just sit there telling us what to do, and we're doing all the work, and they're giving us these briefs that don't really make sense. Let's challenge the brief. Let's tell them that's not what you want to do. What you want to do is this. And sometimes um, there's a good reason to do that, but there's ways of doing it. You know, very often agencies can come in and say, no, we're challenging your brief. What you want to do is this, but they haven't understood the whys, the journey, the research, the what the longer term vision and strategy is, which is why just having those conversations and keeping close to each other and getting us under the skin of each other's businesses as you possibly can is key.
yeah, absolutely. So looking back, what are some maybe early experiences that really most show up in how you think about storytelling and brand truth today at Grindr?
That's a great question. So, you know, as a child, I was a peculiar child, a peculiar adult. I was always obsessed by the adverts on TV. I literally used to memorize them, used to to repeat them, used to drive my family insane by repeating jingles to them that I can still remember. And even though I didn't really realize what I was thinking, I was understanding that being memorable, being interesting, standing out in some way is going to land your brand message. There's still fruit and fiber adverts and shake and vac adverts and brands that I'm loyal to just because they're so stuck in my head. Another experience that I had was one of the weekend jobs that I had as a teenager was working in this fashion store that was called Concept Man, which was kind of like a 1980s fashion store that had its day, was getting a bit tired. And people just thought, what wasn't that cool anymore. And I remember one weekend, we closed the store down, packed up all the clothes and sent them away because the shop was being refurbished. What we hadn't realized was that it was being completely rebranded. So it was going from this sort of like neon and steel 1980s dark store to something that was more kind of like of the late 80s, early 90s, which was very sort of like 1950s memorabilia, very retro. And it was a store called River Island. And then the next weekend, we came into this brand new store and we got all the new clothes to put out. And it was exactly the same clothes that we had packed the week before. They just changed the labels. And when we opened the store, we went from the store being empty to there being queues around the block to come in. And this stuff was just flying off the shelf. And again, it instantly made me think, well, why is that? That's just the brand. It's just the packaging. It's just the positioning. So that was something that, again, stayed very much in my head. When I then moved to university and I was working through it and I was working in nightclubs and bars and doing everything from handing out flyers to putting up posters to talking to media and getting it talked about and getting all the right celebrities and stuff there, to really thinking about, okay, it's just about positioning and it's about the storytelling and it's about connecting to what are people thinking about, what are people connecting with, and what's going to engage with them emotionally. The rational arguments are always quite easy to find. It's the emotional ones, how is it making me feel? What's it making me think? What does it make me want to do? That, again, are the ones that I always keep top of mind. The how are you going to make people feel with the campaigns that you're building, with the messages that you're delivering, with the work that you're putting out there.
Yeah, that's great, and I think it leads me really to the next question, because Grindr has been in a repositioning of its own, really trying to position itself as this global gayborhood, not just a hookup app.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what maybe internal or external tensions are showing up as you're trying to evolve that brand when people kind of think they already know what it is.
So at the core of that, and at the core of, I think, any good campaign is the truth, which sounds like a very obvious and simple thing to say, but there are many ways of presenting the truth, and the way that we're presenting the truth of Grindr is actually how it's being used. So Grindr was set up very much as a hookup app. 17 years ago, we were the first location-based app on the iPhone, taking advantage of location services. Our founder, Joel Simkai, saw a huge opportunity there, and it worked. It was answering a real human need for gay people to be able to find each other. Incredibly successful, first mover advantage, great brand recognition. When I got here, there was a lot of brand debt because we hadn't really put our arms around it. And through tech phobia, homophobia, the fact that we hadn't told our true brand story, there was a lot that we needed to talk about. And by default, really, rather than by design, Grindr has become the premier connection point for the gay community. Yes, they're looking for hookups and sex, and that's fine, and we celebrate that. As long as everyone's safe and happy and of age, then we absolutely want that to continue. But there are many other use cases that users have hacked to find each other. And those are what we call the global gayborhood. So what that means is, if you're in Chicago or you're in New York or you're in San Francisco or London, there are physical gayborhoods where you can go to find each other, to find community, to find safety, to find information, to find friendships, to find love, and of course to find sex. Um, in the majority of the world, we're in 190 countries, that isn't the case. It isn't so easy for us to find each other in everyday life if we live in a smaller city, somewhere more rural, or in the outskirts. But the one key truth that we know is that wherever you are in the world, there will be gay people around you. And where there's gay people, there's gay community, there's gay friendship, there's gay businesses, there's all kinds of opportunities. So Grindr is a way of digitally bringing a gayborhood to you wherever you may be. Wherever you open Grindr, because it's location based, um, it reveals where people are, and as we continue to build it, it will reveal where businesses are, where community centers are, where sexual health information is, where are areas that might be dangerous that you should stay away from, and all of that wonderful stuff that you can find in a real physical gayborhood. So it's the digital layer. So it works for us because there's a real human need for it, and there's a real product truth to it as well, in that is what we deliver. So that's where the gayborhood came from.
Sure, sure. Yeah, listening to the customers, listening to how the users have been using it, and expanding on that. Love that. So you've been there for a couple of years now, but now you've moved into the CMO role.
Yes.
And I'm curious, what's maybe taking up more of your attention right now than maybe you expected?
What's taking up more of my attention? Oh, there's always a lot of things taking up my attention. So I think international is something that we really need to start paying a lot more attention to. So, like I say, we're in 190 countries. We've really been focused on steadying the ship from a brand and from a comms point of view in the US, and really owning our narrative. However, there are so many other markets that we need to think about, and that we need to be deliberate about how we enter them as well. So, we're very big in India, we're very big in Brazil, obviously Western Europe, and many other markets. And for political, societal, religious, all kinds of reasons, there's different ways in which we should be engaging with our community there, in which we should be positioning ourselves. And that's something that I really am paying a lot more attention to. And I think, with everything, when you get into more senior roles, as part of the C-suite, the business piece of it all is something that you spend a lot more time on. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because many people say the more senior you get, the less of your actual job that you were doing as you were coming up you do. But that isn't necessarily as much the case here. We're a very lean team. The whole company is under 200 people, and we're in 190 countries. That includes all the engineers, everybody. So we're still very hands-on. We work a lot with agencies and with freelancers as well, but we do have an unashamedly senior team that stretches up and down. So I still remain very hands-on with the work as well. The creativity of it, the creation of campaigns, understanding the audiences, is something that I'm still very involved in with the team. I think the key to keep things fresh is to remain interested, keep looking ahead, and to keep looking at new technologies. We're embracing AI a lot with open arms. We want to become an AI first company. We know that, when mobile and apps became a thing, we got first mover advantage there. We want to make sure that we retain that advantage through the AI revolution. So really embracing it, looking at how we can harness it from a product point of view, but also from everything that we do in marketing point of view is a key priority.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, the market is changing, technology is changing. You mentioned AI. What feels maybe harder to move now than it used to?
Um, what feels harder to move than it used to? I'm not sure. I kind of feel like, well, the thing that's harder is getting people's attention. You know,
Mm.
there's so much out there. Every brand has to become an entertainment company to a certain extent to get people's attention. You know, a regular out of home campaign, a regular TV ad campaign just don't get cut through anymore. You have to uh, capture people's attention, and you have seconds in which to do it because people will keep scrolling by or flip the channel or just not pay attention to what you're doing. So I think really thinking about your audience every minute of the day, what's going to get them to engage with you, to care about you, to think about you, to remember you, to keep you top of mind. I think that's the real challenge at the moment because we are up against everyone's an entertainer. Everybody wants your attention, and getting that cut through in a way that is going to obviously have positive business outcomes and is going to get people to um, do the things that we need them to do: download, use the product, stay in the product, subscribe to the product. That's the piece that I think for everybody is just getting harder every day.
Yeah, yeah. From my research, it sounds like you guys really seem to be operating like a content studio, really than kind of a traditional marketing internal department. How are you deciding what maybe stays in house or where agencies might have value? I know you have a small team you mentioned. How do you make those types of decisions? And tell us a little bit about the studio too.
Yes. So that is very much off the back of what I was just talking about, the really having to keep people entertained and engaged with content that speaks directly to them. We have a very specific audience, so we can narrowcast to them. We don't need to broadcast because there'd be so much wastage because the majority of the population won't be using our product. Our key audience, of course, is the eventual users of the app, but we have varying audiences. We're an advertising platform as well, so advertisers, we're publicly listed, investors, corporate, legislators, and so on. So the content that we produce is very much telling the real story of Grindr, the benefits of Grindr. And we do that in a number of ways. We do it very much in an open palm kind of way. So, for instance, we have a podcast that's called "Who's the Arsehole?" Don't know if you'll need to bleep me out there. We get lots of trouble with bleeping, which is very much acknowledging that, as with any social platform, there are bad behaviors on the platform because, we allow the public on, and sometimes the public don't behave very well. And we all complain about these behaviors. And as a product, we do the best that we possibly can to moderate for these and to deal with these either through blocking or through moderation or new AI tools that we're building. However, people get through the cracks. So we all complain about these bad behaviors, but someone is committing these bad behaviors. So very much thinking about, well, maybe it's you, and having that open and honest conversation, which people are really embracing. There's no pointing us pretending that these things don't happen. And I really think that being more honest about it is the way forward. Going back to your question, the way that we work with agencies versus what's in-house, the truth is that we as a team know our audience, know the community incredibly well. We are mainly members of the community, or definitely allies, if not. We live and breathe the community through the app, through our events. So when it comes to the insights as to what we should be creating, they mainly come from us as a team. So we have a history lessons piece of content called Daddy Lessons. We've got travel series called Host or Travel, which is very much focused on the real use case that people do use Grindr when they're traveling for not just for hookups, but to find local information about safety, about bars, venues, beaches, hotels, and so on. And so that amplifies that. So we tend to come up with the ideas and create the brief, and then we will find the best partners to work with. So the production partners who go out and make the content for us, who stage the content, with in partnership with a great team that we have internally of filmmakers and script writers, who are at Grindr and who, like I say, have an intimate knowledge of the community and really speak the language of our community, because we have highly engaged social channels, a voracious appetite for gay culture, and so far it's worked out quite well. We've got some pretty successful titles there that, as well as on social, live inside our app in the Grindr Presents area. So we were seeing that this content was really taking off from an engagement point of view and from a media pickup point of view. So it now lives in a new section in the app called Grindr Present that we really want to grow as a new reason to return to the gayborhood, for content that is produced by the community for the community, that understands their real lives.
Sure. Yeah, I love that. So when you're talking to an agency, how do you kind of quickly decide whether they really understand, queer culture versus just talking about it?
Yeah, it's it's a really interesting one, because people can get it really wrong. And it's quite easy to tell if people are telling you the things that they think you want to hear, versus really understanding that, the gay internet is a real thing, and that queer culture is a real thing, and that it goes way beyond Drag Race. Nothing wrong with Drag Race. We work with Drag Race. We love it, but there's a lot more to us as well. So having that cultural fluency is really important. We've had some quite cringeworthy proposals with a lot of yasses in them and a lot of sparkles and a lot of rainbows, and it's very well intentioned, but it isn't really understanding the lived experiences. Things like that are things that you can't really fake. So much as obviously we have agencies where no one is a member of the community, it's very important that they are ingrained in it and have an understanding of it, because we've got a very critical audience out there, and they're very happy to tell us when we've gone wrong. And there's a lot of different points of view. That the community isn't one big, everybody agrees, everybody moves in the same direction, and we do cater to many different gay, bi, trans, queer people from many different places around the world. So we want to just make sure that it's authentic. And, like I was saying earlier about agencies, them listening and them building the relationship with us is always key to understanding whether we're going to work well together. We've got, and we also work with agencies from all around the world. So, for instance, our agency that we work with to produce our travel series is a great agency from Spain called Neurads, who we work with on a number of different pieces of content. And having that different point of view from a Spanish agency is actually really important, because, we are obviously, the US is our biggest market, and our marketing department is based in LA. But we just want to make sure that we're capturing as many different points of view as possible. So we try to get an international mix to everything, so it doesn't feel like, okay, this is the East LA point of view, or this is the New York point of view, and mixing up different voices, points of view, and backgrounds.
Yeah. Makes sense. So I want to shift gears here. We're coming to a close here soon. So let's talk. We talk a lot about work, right? But outside of work, I'd love to know, what are some of your personal rituals, interests, habits, collections that help you stay grounded and move at the speed of culture?
Well, let me think of, I, I just like to keep interested in popular culture. You know, I think in this job you have to be, and as soon as you stop being interested in it or start to think, oh, what are the kids up to now, then you've kind of lost it. So I stay connected to all the socials, to what's going on in music and TV and film and art and all of those things. So that takes up a lot of my time, from a reading, from a social, from a going out and seeing what's going on point of view. At the other end of the spectrum, I've always been a big Barbie collector. I've got a massive collection of Barbie dolls, both here in the US and back in the UK. And that's something that I've been interested in, again, from a popular culture point of view, since I was a child, in that it's something that's been a constant there through culture, and just looking at different time capsules from history as to how Barbie has evolved from a body standards, beauty standards, diversity standard, attitudes towards women, attitudes towards play, attitudes towards children. I just find it really fascinating because it's this kind of like encapsulated little bubble of popular culture, and one that just really interests me and I follow in my spare time to relax. That might sound a little bit weird, but there you
go. I love it. I love it. I used to collect a lot of different things. I've given up most of those today, but I've collected a lot of weird things over the years. So I can appreciate it.
They take up far too much room. I need to stop it. But
yeah, once I got onto my minimalism kick, all the collections, had to go. But
I need to come into. Well, I had a minimalism kick in 2012, which I then instantly regretted, and then kind of went back to filling everything up again. And
there you go.
I'm a confirmed maximalist.
There you go. Well, Tristan, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're busy into this new role, and really excited for all the work that you're doing. So thanks again for the conversation. To everybody that's watching, don't forget to follow CMO Journeys for more conversations with marketing leaders that are shaping what's next. I'm Christian Banach. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.